And now grab 2 blocks for Ardha Uttanasana and set your blocks down in front of your feet, which are shoulder distance apart. So parallel feet, lift the toes, lift the arches of the feet, hands on hips, shoulders back, lift the side ribs. Let your shoulder blades slide down as you look up and lift the collarbones, and then exhale and hinge at the hips to fold forward. Stay long in the fronts of the legs and lift the backs of the legs to lift the buttocks, hands onto the blocks, extended elbows. And look forward as you pull your bottom front ribs forward to elongate the belly, to be very long in the front of the trunk. Pull the outer hips back, pull the inner thighs back, and pull the rib cage forward. And see if you can let the upper spine sink down towards the chest and stretch your chest more forwards. Pull the upper thighs back as much as you're pulling those bottom ribs forward. Make more space between the arms and the legs, which are both extending. Deepen the thoracic vertebrae towards the chest. And then keep all of that magnificent length in the front of your trunk as you fold down into Uttanasana, taking your hands near your toes, fingertips on the floor, strong and long in the legs, and then hands to hips and stretch your chest forward, shoulders back as you come all the way up. And now we'll practice Uttanasana. Stand with your feet hip distance apart, hands on hips, strong, long, engaged legs, shoulders back, rib cage lifting, shoulder blades pressing forward into the rib cage. And then exhale and fold forward, lifting the inner legs, the outer legs, lifting the fronts of the legs, and lifting and lengthening the backs of the legs, and turn your pelvis over the femurs. And then let your trunk release down. Let the front ribs release down towards the toenails. Let the back ribs release down towards the back of the head. Let your skull release and relax down, going with gravity. Let your elbows go wide. Let the abdomen recede and get longer. Engage your legs so the musculature of the legs hugs the bones and lifts. Breathing here in Uttanasana. And then remain firm in the legs as you take your hands to hips, shoulders towards the ceiling to reach your chest forward and come all the way up with a strong spine. And now we'll get ready for a deep, low lunge with the back knee down. So place a blanket on your sticky mat as you see here, and that will be the padding for the knee that will drop down. And then stand at the front of your sticky mat with a block on either side of each foot. Stand tall in mountain pose. Stand tall in mountain pose with energized legs. And then bring your hands down to the blocks and step your left foot back. Gather the outer right hip back and in. Lift the back thigh up. Lengthen the spine from bottom to top. Long trunk here, long abdomen. And let your hips sink down to be the height of the front knee. And then let your hips sink even further down as you reach the left thigh further back, and then place the left knee down on the blanket, and then untuck your back toes. So the front of the shin and the front of the foot and the back leg is resting down on the blanket and the sticky mat, and sink your hips forward and down. So the whole sacrum is relaxing and releasing forwards, and then lift your low belly so that you lift your trunk up and out of the pelvis. Bending deeply in the front knee, pull the outer right hip back. Pull the right femur back towards the hip socket. Pull the outer right hip back and also towards the midline. Gather your hips towards each other. Lift the low belly. Kick the back shin into the sticky mat. And then tuck your back toes under, lift your back thigh, and step your back foot forward. Then now step your right foot back, first coming into a simple lunge. Gather the left femur back towards the hip socket. Lift the back thigh. Let your hips come down to be the same height as the front knee. Gather your hips together and lengthen your spine. And then walk your right leg even further back. Extend that right thigh further back. Sink your hips down and then lower the back knee down onto the blanket. And rest the top of your back foot down onto the sticky mat. Kick the right shin down into the ground as you take your hips forward, letting the whole sacrum move forward. The tailbone moves into the body, and then lift your low belly and gather your outer left hip from the outer knee to the hip socket. So the outer left hip gathers back and in towards the midline. Squeeze your outer hips together, lift the deep low belly again, and lengthen through the anterior spine, kicking the right shin down. Bending deeply in the front knee. Smooth breathing here. And then tuck your back toes and lift your back thigh. And step your back foot forward. Bend your knees, relax and release your head down, and then take your hands to hips and stretch your chest forward to come on up. Now we'll practice Prasarita Padottanasana with a very special twist. So step your feet wide, heels wider than toes, hands on hips. Lengthen the waist, lengthen the right and left sides of the spine, ascend through the central axis of the body and relax the throat, and then spread your arms out to the sides and get taller. Reach the upper inner thighs back, thigh bones pull back. Inhale here, and then exhale, take the right hand all the way over to the floor near the left foot, and lift the left arm up to the ceiling. Make more space between head and tail, lengthen the anterior spine and twist. Twist the low belly, twist the navel region, twist the rib cage and look up. And then inhale back to the center, and exhale, take the left hand to the floor near the right foot. Reach the right arm up. Lengthen the anterior spine, twist the low belly, twist at the latitude of the navel, twist the right ribs open and the left ribs under you. Pull the thighs back and stretch the chest forward away from the thighs. And then inhale up to the center. And exhale, take the right hand to the floor near your left foot. Lift the left arm up, twisting. Inhale to center, strong legs. And exhale, twist to the left, lifting the right arm up, turning the spine. Inhale up to the center, thighs pull back. Exhale, twisting right hand near left foot. Turning the ribs. Inhale up to center, lifting the low belly. And exhale, left hand near right foot, turning up. Inhale to the center. And exhale, right hand near left foot, twisting up to the left. And inhale to the center. And exhale, twisting left hand near right foot, turning the belly and the ribs. Inhale up to the center. And exhale, and step your feet together. Now we'll practice what I call the Prasarita dog. So have your blocks ready in front of you, and then step your feet wide so that your heels are wider than your toes, thighs rolling in, muscles of the legs engaged and lifting up, thighs pressing back. Lift the low belly, lift the side ribs, shoulders back, lift from under the heart, and then exhale and fold yourself forward, taking the hands to the blocks. Keep your legs very active and very tall. Keep lifting the backs of the legs as you slide your blocks forward, taking your upper body into a down dog position. Pull the outer hips up and back. Pull the inner thighs back. Stretch your hands and arms forwards as you let your head release down between the arms. Think of the thoracic spine deepening towards the chest. Abdomen is long, and the front of the spine, the anterior spine, is very elongated here. Stay lifted in the fronts and backs of the legs evenly. Stay grounded in the inner feet. Press your hands into the blocks and release the top of the head down. Stay open and relaxed and lifted in the back of the throat. Let the abdomen recede and lengthen. Breathing here. And then walk your hands back so the blocks are right under the shoulders, and then walk your feet a little closer. Bend your knees, hands to hips, shoulders back, and lift the chest to come on up. And then step your feet together. Now we'll practice Parshvottanasana, so have your two blocks ready. And step your right foot forward and left foot back, so your feet are hips width apart. Square your hips by pulling your right hip back and left hip forward. And then press your feet down and draw up through the musculature of the legs to extend and straighten the legs fully. Lift the low belly, shoulders back. Lengthen the upper side ribs. Lift the collarbones and look up with strong legs. And then exhale and keep your spine very long as you hinge at the hips and fold forward, taking your hands to blocks. Ground the back quadricep back towards the hamstring, and then press the front big toe mound down and draw up through the musculature of the front of that right thigh. Pull the right hip back and gather the outer right hip back and in towards the midline of the body. And now slide the low belly a little bit to the right so that you square your trunk directly over that front leg, starting with the very low belly coming to face that right thigh. And then you're going to start to fold even deeper, sliding the blocks forward, elongating through the armpits, and then release the nose towards the shin. Outer right hip is pulling back and in. Hips are square, back thigh is firm. Ground the back heel down. Ground the front big toe mound down and make your legs taller. And then walk the blocks back so the blocks frame the front foot, stretching the chest forward. Take your hands to hips and stand on up. Firm legs. Shoulders back. And then switch sides. Now stepping the left foot forward and the right foot back. And have your feet hips width apart. Ground through the feet and draw up through the musculature of the legs and pull the left hip back and right hip forward. Ascend up through the central axis of the body and take your shoulders back. Lift the collarbones and lift the chin as you inhale, and then exhale, hinge at the hips and take your hands down to the blocks. And then start to slide your belly to the left as you gather the outer left hip in, so that you can align the midline of your trunk with the midline of the left leg. Ground the back heel, ground the front big toe mound, and draw up through the front of that left leg to square the hips even more. And let the abdomen recede towards the spine and lengthen forwards to help you lengthen the front ribs forward to open the chest. Breathing here. And then start to slide the blocks forwards. Still pulling the outer left hip back. Grounding the right thigh back, firm in the front thigh. Elongating the trunk over that front leg. Stretch long through the armpits, stretch long through the front of the spine. And then walk the hands back with those blocks, stretch the chest forward, take hands to hips, and lift all the way up. And then step your feet together and release your arms by your sides. And now come to the wall for a variation of downward facing dog. So place your sticky mat against the wall and place your blocks down at shoulder distance apart, blocks against the wall. And then step up into a down dog position with hands on blocks, heels of the hands coming off the edge of the blocks just a little bit. Bend your knees and lift the buttocks way up high. Stretch your legs up into the height of the hips. Stretch the fronts of your legs. Stretch open the backs of your legs. Open the backs of the knees and pull your outer hips back and pull your pelvis up and back. Stretch through the armpits. Extend through the arms. Let your head get heavy and your tail get lighter. And then step your feet together and lift your right leg up into the sky. See if you can reach your left heel back and down as you lift your right leg higher, keeping it internally rotated for a moment, lifting the inner right thigh up. Pull the pelvis up and back, especially the left outer hip, pulling up and back there. And then open your right hip just for a moment to feel that opening, and then square off your right hip again. Pull the rib cage up and away from the blocks. And then lower your right leg down and lift the left leg up and back behind you for a one-leg dog. Pull the outer right hip back, lift the left leg higher and stretch the back of the leg. Pull your right heel back and down and pull your rib cage off of the shoulder sockets, up and back towards the pelvis. Pull the outer right hip back even more as you open the left hip. Keep elongating up through the left leg, and then square the hips again. Pull the pelvis up and back. Stretch long through the armpits, grounding through the hands, spreading wide in the fingers. Lift the left leg even more, keeping the legs straight if you can. And then lower the left leg down and widen your feet again so they're hip distance apart. Lift up through the musculature of the legs. Head releasing. And then bend your knees and lower your knees down to come out of the pose. And now we'll practice Parshvakonasana using the wall. So set up your sticky mat against the wall and have a block nearby. And then step your feet wide with your outer left foot at the wall. Heels wider than toes, hands on hips, shoulders back, lifted and long in the spine, shoulder blades hugging into the rib cage. And then turn the whole right leg out. So the foot turns out and the whole thigh rotates so that the front of your right leg points towards the right. And then bend your right knee so the knee is tracking directly over the midline of the foot. Grab your block and rest your hand on the block on the inside of your right foot. Press your right upper arm into the right inner knee. And then lift the left arm up towards the ceiling. And think of the shoulder blades hugging deeper into the rib cage. Let the thoracic spine move deep into the body towards the chest, and then swing your left arm all the way across and gaze at your top hand. Press the outer left foot into the wall. Become very extended in that back leg. Left thigh bone pulls back. And then lengthen that left leg all the way through the left side of the trunk, all the way through the left arm. And firm the right butt cheek forward. So the buttocks is not at all back behind you, but firm the right buttock forward towards the groin. And then inhale, come all the way up to center, hands on hips. Move the block over to the side. Turn your feet so that they're parallel. And step your feet together. And get ready for the other side now, stepping your feet wide so the outer right foot comes to the wall. Engage your legs, lengthen your legs, hands on hips. Let the shoulders hug the back of the shoulder sockets. Let the thoracic spine move deeper into the body towards the chest, elbows back, long waist, abdomen lengthening, and then turn the whole left leg out so that left thigh is even turning out, so the thigh bone is turning in the socket, and then bend the left knee so the knee is tracking directly over the midline of the foot. Pull the left butt cheek forward towards the left groin so the buttock is not at all sinking back behind you. And then ground the right thigh back. Let the outer right foot press into the wall. And it's okay if that right hip comes forward. The right hip does not have to be perfectly flat. In fact, it shouldn't be. So that right hip can come forward a little bit of internal rotation in that right thigh, which will help the left butt cheek drop down and come under you. And then lift the right arm up. Stretch the right arm to the ceiling, spread the wingspan, and then deepen the thoracic spine towards the chest as you swing your right arm across and gaze at the top hand. Be very long in the whole right side of your body, so stretch from the right heel to the right fingertips, getting longer there, deepening the bend in the left knee. Left knee is staying open as the left upper arm presses back against it. Left buttock dropping down and coming under you. Right thigh grounding back. And then inhale and come all the way up. Hands to hips. Feet parallel. And step your feet together. And then release your arms and recover with an open chest. Now we'll practice Upavishta Konasana. So sit on the corner of a folded blanket as you see here and stretch your legs out to the sides. So don't have your legs too wide. I would say about 120-degree angle is plenty wide. And take your hands behind you on the blanket and press your fingertips down into the blanket so that you can lengthen the spine up, shoulders back. Tops of the thighs are very grounded, and make sure the thighs are not internally rotating or externally rotating, but the fronts of your legs are pointing straight up to the ceiling. Feet are pointing straight up to the ceiling in flexion. Ground down the tops of your femurs and lift the low belly. Inner and outer knees equally grounded, inner feet extending. Spread the inner legs from the groins to the inner knees to the ankles and gather the outer thighs back into the hips. And then start to take a twist to the right. So the left hand comes in front of your pubic bone onto the floor and the right hand is behind you on the blanket. Keeping the legs active, start to turn the belly, turn the low belly, turn the navel, turn the rib cage. Left ribs forward, right ribs back. Get grounded, especially in that left femur. Inner left knee grounding. And come back to the center. Pause here. And then twist over to the other side, taking the right fingertips to the sticky mat in front of your pubic bone. Left hand behind. Ground the right femur, ground the right inner knee as you turn the low belly to the left, rotate the navel to the left, rotate the ribs. Take the left ribs forward and the right ribs back. Keep your breath open here as you turn, as you twist. And then come back to the center. Gather the outer thighs towards the hip sockets. Lengthen the side ribs up towards the armpits and take your shoulders back and down. Inner knees grounding. And then start to fold forward now, taking your hands in front of you and then lower down onto forearms. Elbows walking forward. Let the abdomen recede. Let the upper buttocks release down towards the blanket. So the navel recedes back towards the anterior spine and the bottom front ribs still extend forwards to keep the front of the trunk long. Keep the kidney area open and expanding. So don't let those bottom back ribs sink forward, but rather gently move the front ribs towards the back ribs and then slide the whole rib cage forward. Buttocks grounding down behind you, thigh bones grounding vigorously. Steady breathing here. And then walk your hands back towards the pelvic floor and then take your hands behind you so that you can sit tall. Staying active in the legs. And then slide your legs together, bending the knees. Now we'll practice Upavishta Konasa forward bend with a bolster for support. So sit on your butt and open your legs out to Upavishta Konasana. Legs no wider than 120 degrees. And then pull the flesh of your buttocks back so you can sit on the center of the sitting bones. Have the bolster in front of you vertically. Rest your fingertips on the mat behind you. Let the shoulders go back, elbows back. Be long in your waist. And ascend the central axis of the body from the pelvic floor all the way up through the top of the head. And let your thigh bones be grounded, especially the tops of the thigh bones, and let your legs be active and feet and toes open. And don't let the thighs roll in or out, but let the fronts of your thighs point straight up. And then pull the bolster close into your pubic bone area and pull your belly up and over the bolster to elongate out and lay down here. And rest your forearms down, slide your forearms forward a little bit and take your head to one side and rest. And let your legs stay a little bit active here. So just find a moderate amount of effort so that the thighs don't roll in completely or roll out completely. Keep your legs fairly neutral. Keep the tops of your thighs grounded and let the buttocks release down behind you. So the top buttocks releases down towards the bottom buttocks. And then switch the turn of the head. Stretch from the inner groins to the inner ankles. And you can gently think of gathering from the outer ankles all the way back to the outer knees and the outer hips. So the inner thighs extend outwards and the outer thighs gather back in. Soft, receding, long belly. Don't harden in the belly at all here. And breathe into the backs of the lungs. And then use your hands to help yourself on up. Take your fingertips behind and open the chest here, sitting upright. Now we'll practice Baddha Konasana with a block between the feet. So have a seat on a folded blanket and prepare for Baddha Konasana, taking the buttock flesh back so that you can sit on the front edge of the sitting bones. And take the block right between the feet and press your feet into the block. Hands behind you on the blanket to help your trunk be very long and upright. Let the shoulders hug the back of the shoulder sockets. Lift the low belly and let the pubic bone descend. Let the abdomen recede back and lengthen. Spread wide across the collarbones and start to stretch the right knee to the right and the left knee to the left. So the inner thighs become very wide. And press the feet into the block as you gather from the outer knees back into the outer hips. So your outer thighs travel towards the hip sockets. So those outer thighs are grounding into the hips, and the inner thighs are spreading from the groins to the inner knees. Connect the soles of the feet to the block. And then inhale and lift your knees up to the center. And now we'll practice Baddha Konasana. Feet together, knees wide. Adjust the flesh of the buttocks back so that you can sit on the front half of the sitting bones, and then interlace your fingers around the outer feet. And then start to lengthen up through the spine because the groins are descending. So the pubic bone is descending. You're sitting on the front of the sitting bones, which makes a lift in the trunk happen naturally. Think of stretching the right knee to the right and the left knee to the left. Gather the outer knees back towards the hips. And then start to fold forward. You can keep your hands clasped, or you can place your hands on your shins somewhere. And your elbows can stay close to the hip creases, or you can release your hands and forearms forward. So find the way that you would like to forward fold here and continue to gather your outer thighs back towards the hips to help your inner thighs stretch from the groins to the inner knees. So the inner thighs are stretching out to the sides to help ground the knees down, using the musculature of the legs to find that grounding of the knees. Outer feet pressing towards each other, feet opening like a book. Groins spreading, outer thighs gathering, abdomen receding and lengthen your trunk further forward. Smooth out your breath here. And then start to roll yourself back up to upright. And lift your knees up to the center. Now we'll do a version of Virasana, seated pose. Open up your blanket onto your mat like you see here. And place your block onto the blanket and then come onto your shins with that block between the feet. Rest the top of your head onto the sticky mat and use your hands to pull the calf muscles down towards the Achilles tendons and out to the sides so that your thigh bones can sit down between the shins and the calves went lateral so there's room for the thighs to sit down. And then pull the skin of the shins forward and pull the flesh of the buttocks back so that you can really sit on the center of the sitting bones. Make your adjustments here. Make sure that your feet and toes are pointing straight back. Rest your hands on your thighs. Feel the natural curves of your spine here. The head balanced right over the pelvic floor. Breathe up and down your spine here. Create a little lift from the low belly. And then interlace your fingers and press your palms forward. And lift the hands up to the ceiling. Take the arms back and keep the waist pulling back as the arms go back. So you want to avoid the belly swinging forward as the arms go back. The belly should recede back. The elbows pull in towards each other. The hands press up. The lower belly lifts. The thighs are grounding down. And then exhale and lower your arms down and switch the interlace of the fingers. Press your palms forward and pull the abdomen back and lengthen the abdomen as you lift the arms back and lift the palms to the ceiling. Long in the waist. Let the arms be an extension of your waist. Press the shoulder blades forward into the rib cage, but let the abdomen settle back and lengthen. The roots of the thighs are grounded. Breathing here, getting grounded through the sitting bones as you inhale, and soften and open the soft palate, the back of the throat as you exhale. And then lower your arms down and rest your hands on your thighs. Now we'll practice Supta Padangusthasana. So have a strap nearby and lay down on your back. Adjust the flesh of your buttocks so that it moves away from the lower back towards the feet. Have your knees bent and feet flat, and then extend your arms overhead. Lengthen the arms and lengthen the trunk. Lengthen the front of the spine. Relaxed long belly. Open rib cage. Soft in the back of the throat. Neutral pelvis. And then grab your strap and lasso the right heel with the strap. And start to extend your right leg so that it's up at 90 degrees. And if this is difficult for you, you can keep your knee bent. And then start to extend the left leg. Make sure that the left leg is internally rotating just enough so that the midline of the front of your left leg is pointing straight up. And then think of the center of the left thigh grounding and the center of the right thigh moving away from the belly. Stay long and even in the belly. Shoulder blades slide down the back. Heads of the humerus bones ground towards the sticky mat. Open in the chest as you breathe. Long spine, open chest, extended legs, and reach the right heel straight up towards the ceiling. The top half of the right thigh is pulling away from the right side of the abdomen. The outer right hip is pulling away from the right waist. Internally rotate the left thigh and ground it down. Extend through the inner left foot. And then you can start to let the elbows bend out to the sides and pull the right ankle a little bit closer to your head as the top of the right thigh moves towards the left foot. So that right leg is like a seesaw. If the foot moves towards the head, then the top of the leg moves away from the head. Enjoy the stretch here, long spine. And then release, and we'll switch sides. But before we take the left leg up, just rest the strap on your belly and extend your arms along the floor overhead, lengthening there. Just take a breath. And then lasso the left heel with the strap, kicking the left heel up towards the ceiling. Again, taking a bent knee if that helps you keep your pelvis neutral. You don't want to tuck your pelvis here at all. And then extend the right leg long, internally rotating the right leg a bit, grounding down through that right thigh. Pull the outer left hip away from the left waist. Shoulder blades down the back, long spine, relaxed long belly, elbows wide. Kick the left heel up. Ground the center of the right thigh down. Ground the center of the left thigh away from the abdomen, so that left waist and left side of the abdomen is very long. And if you start to pull the left ankle a little more towards the head, make sure that the root of the left leg pulls away from the abdomen towards the right foot. Long spine, open breath, relaxed throat, relaxing in the groins. Find an internal rotation in the legs and relaxed groins. A neutral pelvis here as much as possible, active in the extension of the knees. And then bend your knees, feet flat. Bring your arms up and overhead to extend through the elbows and extend through the waist. Nice and even in right and left sides. Now we'll practice Supta Padangustasana 2. So have a blanket and a strap with you. Lay down on your back. Knees bent and feet flat, neutral pelvis. And stretch your arms up overhead along the floor and lengthen out your trunk as you breathe. And then make sure that your folded blanket is to your right. And lasso the right heel with your strap. Stretch your right leg up to the ceiling and then stretch your left leg long. And just start to extend fully the backs of the knees if you can. And now bring the blanket close to the outer right hip and hold on to the strap with your right hand only. Spread the left arm to the left and start to open up your right leg out to the right. So the blanket is supporting you underneath the outer right thigh. Keep the left leg extending. And think of the low belly spreading to the left to balance out the right leg going to the right. Long in the abdomen. And start to notice the way that that right thigh is rotating in the hip socket. If you rotate it in slightly, you might get a very different stretch in your inner thigh. If you keep your leg at around the height of the hip, it will be different than if you pull the right leg up towards the armpit. So breathe here as you explore stretching different parts of the inner thigh. Stay grounded in that left thigh. And then inhale and come up to center. And we'll switch sides. So place your blanket on the other side, so it's to the left of you. And lasso the left heel with the strap. Extend the left leg up first. And then extend the right leg. Internally rotating in that right leg. Outer left hip pulling away from the left waist. Backs of the knees opening. Long in the spine, shoulder blades sliding down the back. And then pull the blanket towards the outer left hip, very close. And grab onto the strap close to your foot with your left hand only. Spread the right arm to the right, spread the low belly to the right as the leg opens out to the left. And experiment here with rotating the leg so that you can turn in slightly, a little bit of internal rotation in the hip socket or a little bit of external rotation in the hip socket will give you a different stretch. It might stretch different parts of the inner thigh. Grounded in that right thigh, even in the waist. Right and left waists are long, long abdomen. And then bring the left leg all the way up to center. And release, bending the knees, feet flat. Now we'll practice Shavasana, and we'll do what I call a wide Shavasana, with the limbs nice and wide. So set yourself up by taking the flesh of the buttocks away from the lower back. And have your head resting on a blanket here, so there's some softness under the head. And then stretch your arms out wide and stretch your legs out wide, like a starfish. And just enjoy the spaciousness of this Shavasana, letting the limbs be expansive and relaxed at the same time. And deepen your breath here. And let your next exhalation be very slow and gradual and smooth. Relax and release.